Hello and welcome to yesterday's Airlines. In this video I'm going to discuss El Aviador 400 scale models. Now El Aviador are a Texas-based retailer that specialises in producing Latin classics. And by that I mean airlines typically ranging from the 70s, 80s, 90s and 2000s that come from either Central or South America. Now, El Aviador have a standard shop that sells a whole range of 400 and 200 scale models, but around 2019, they also broke into producing their own 200 scale models, typically using in-flight molds. And they produced quite a decent number, 30 or so of these models, often picking some really excellent choices, 727-100s, 727-200s, some 767s, 737s, even recently an Aero Pro TriStar, and they generally look excellent. However, obviously 200 scale is not my scale, so I don't know a huge amount about them other than they look pretty good to me. But last year, El Aviador changed and has moved down into 400 scale. And just in the last year or so, they've really started picking up the pace and producing some really nice 400 scale releases. So in this video, I'm going to take a quick look around the 400 scale El Aviador models that I have, also the ones that I don't have, and look at what's coming up as well. Just give you a bit of an intro to who El Aviador are. Now, obviously, as always, before I get started, if you like the video, subscribe to the channel and give it a like. Check me out at Facebook and Instagram at Yesterday Airlines, and obviously yesterdaysairlines.com, the website, is the place, the hub for all of my information, and I produce a lot of material on that site, so check that out as well. Okay, but now let's have a look around at the models that I've got, and as I say, the ones that are upcoming for El Aviador 400. El Aviador's first release in 400 scale was this TACA Airbus A321, and this aircraft, as you can see, wears the 75th anniversary tail logo here, which has quite nicely, it's a little macaw making up the 7 of the 75. Macaws obviously had been a fairly large part of the branding of TACA for some time. And TACA obviously began as an El Salvadorian airline, but as it grew, it brought up or came into partnership with other local airlines, AVIACSA. This A321 actually has a Costa Rican flag on it. And as you can tell by the model, it doesn't have aerials, and it's got these, relatively simple style wheels. So you can tell that this is using the aeroclassics mold. And when this first came out, it was a little unclear, when it was announced what mold it would be using, but it's clearly using the aeroclassics mold here. And in fact, El Aviador seemed to have begun a good partnership with the factory that makes aeroclassics and has access to a variety of their molds, which is really good news for collectors, because AC has some really good and interesting classic molds that nobody else has got. So this is a really interesting initial release, and a very nice model as well. And the first one, like I say, that they brought out, I think it was about, it was in the second half of last year. El Aviador's second release continues that Costa Rican theme and is a LACSA 727-200, Líneas Aéreas de Costa Rica. And it's wearing the classic kind of 1980s LACSA stripe scheme, which is really nice. And as you can see, El Aviador models, unlike aeroclassics, come in their own specialized boxes with the logo on, which is nice, even though they're using often the aeroclassics mold. And you can see here again, when we look at this 727, which, if I can focus her up, is definitely using the aeroclassics mold. And that's not a bad thing for me. I think the AC mold isn't too bad. And it's a lovely livery, which looks great. Sort of livery that you'd have seen flying into Miami, and looking really, really classy in the late 80s, early 90s. And overall, it's a really nicely finished model. So that was a really strong second release for me. I thought that was really, really nice, and it fits very nicely also with the sort of models that El Aviador have been making in 200 scale, because they produce quite a range of really nice looking 727s, and I hope to see some more 727s from them in the near future. So not long after the 727 came out, Aviador also announced a further 3 models in quick succession, and these models are a little bit of a surprise because they all were Lockheed L188 Electras. And the reason that's a surprise is because even though AeroClassics have an Electra mold, it hasn't been seen for quite a few years. I think 2014 was probably the last time that it was used. So it's a good 6 or 7 years since the mold was active. It was a little unclear whether it was still available. And there aren't that many prop aircraft released in 400 scale anymore. So it's really, really nice to see that El Aviador were going the distance and producing some really varied releases. And of the 3 models which were announced, which was TAME of Ecuador, SAHSA of Honduras, and Mexican Air Force example, I've got the 2 airline versions of those. And again, they look really, really nice. Now, the AeroClassics Electra isn't necessarily a perfect mold, but at the same time, it's a perfectly good mold, in my opinion. And it's just lovely to be able to see such interesting and colourful aircraft being released in 400 scale. Certainly makes a difference from just seeing a continuous stream of A350s and 787s. And, you know, the AeroClassics factory has done a decent job with these Electras, and they look really, you know, very good. So, you know, within the first 5 releases, El Aviador have hit 5 aircraft never produced in 400 scale, and, you know, a really interesting selection of aircraft as well. So, you know, really, really nice to have those first 5 releases, and all of them using the AeroClassics mold back catalogue. But it's not just AeroClassics that El Aviador has partnered with as the very next release as illustrators. So next up from El Aviador in terms of releases and announcements was an AVIATSA Boeing 737-300. Now, this is a little bit surprising in the sense that AeroClassics don't have a 737-300 mold, or at least they don't have one anymore. They previously used the Panda mold, and Panda are the only people with a good 737-300. Panda have done a huge amount of retailer exclusives for various businesses, so it's no real surprise that El Aviador have been working with them too. And therefore, it was not a surprise that when this was announced, it was going to be using the Panda 737-300 mold, which is a fabulous 737-300, easily the best that's been made in this scale to date. A really, really attractive little bone. And, you know, the finished model, which has only just come out in the last month or so, is a really, you know, impressive looking model. And it shows, in some ways, you know, where Panda have got a superiority to AeroClassics, in the sense that Panda obviously are adding aerials on the top and bottom of their models, but also they have updated things like the landing gear to make them a little bit better. And Panda really just has this capability to produce the sort of detailed printing on things like the roofline. And if we skip over to the belly and on the engines here, which other, you know, manufacturers or some other manufacturers like AeroClassics, you know, don't bother putting the effort in to do, or don't have the capability to deliver. So it's really nice to see that El Aviador has been able to work with Panda as well and produce some interesting models. And it certainly opens up a wider range of release possibilities when you combine together the AeroClassics back catalogue molds with the Panda set of molds as well. Because not only do Panda have a Series 300 737, but they also have a Series 800 737. So Panda have also worked with El Aviador on another release, which literally just came out very recently. And that release is a COPA Panama 737-800 in this special Connect Miles scheme. I don't actually own that model. It's a little bit outside my criteria. I might get it, you never know. But it does look pretty good. Again, it's a nice mold, the new Panda 737-800. And once again, it shows El Aviador's willingness to skip through different decades, but nonetheless find interesting and colourful schemes from Latin America and from countries that are quite poorly represented in 400 scale, like Panama and Guatemala, Honduras. So no, that's really cool, and that's another nice model. Now, El Aviador is still working with both AeroClassics and Panda models, and they have announced 2 further models, both of which are using 737-200s, and so presumably we'll be using the aeroclassics 737-200. And you know, as most people know, the aeroclassics 737-200 is a really good mold, one of aeroclassics' finest. So I'm expecting good things from those. The first one is another LACSA release wearing the same livery as the 727, and the second one is an AVIACSA from Mexico, an AVIACSA 737-200, which is wearing a special scheme to celebrate the airline's 15th anniversary. So two more compelling releases, both of which I'd probably be looking to add to my fleet. And as far as I'm aware, speaking with Aviador, that they have at least one or two more releases scheduled for this year, and no doubt they will carry on producing, you know, releases into 2022. Okay, so that's it for this quick video. There are a lot of retailer exclusive brands around at the moment. El Aviador are perhaps one of the most impressive of those because they've got nicely branded boxes and they're producing a really interesting range of models from my perspective at least. And they're also skirting across the different mold catalogues to get the models that they need. So El Aviador seem to know what they're doing and are producing some really nice semi-classic to near-modern releases in 400 scale. I think that it's a good thing when companies, you know, take matters into their own hands to some extent, because Panda's shown that it doesn't really know what to produce in 400 scale for an international audience. So it's good that it gets some prodding here and there. It would be nice to see more European and North American models, but nonetheless, it's good to have someone like El Aviador who's focused on producing Latin American models. It's an underserved market. They tend to sell quite well from what I've seen. And look at these aircraft. They're really, really attractive. So good on you, El Aviador. I've got 5 of the current 7 releases, and I think I'll probably be getting most of the others too as they come out. So they're certainly meeting the criteria that I'd like to see in 400 scale, and I'm really happy to have them on board. So that's just a quick look at one of the new retailer exclusive brands, El Aviador, and check out my next video, which should be coming anytime in the next week or so. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you later.